I don't know about you guys, but I have a supernatural erotica book idea in the works. And I'm wondering if you guys had to name a supernatural erotica romance novel, what would you guys call it?
Why don't you go first, Gordo?
The Missing Link or My New Kink, an erotic romp with Bigfoot.
That's not supernatural. That's
Yes, it is.
cryptozoology.
It falls in the same.
It does not fall the same. All right, so over here, you're asking us for a question you can't even answer because you're busy writing Bigfoot porn. On to the next thing. Fucking Christ.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Deadbeat. Deadbeat went 36 episodes over 3 seasons on Hulu. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called The Sexorcism, originally airing April 9th, 2014. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, most of the boys, Joe, Gordo, and Ferg. Nick can't make it this week. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
Hello.
Did you get any lube? There's actually a lot of these. Kind of like, I'm here to fuck you is a good one.
Do you have any alternates?
Yeah, I've got a lot of alters written down.
Joe loves a good lube joke, though.
I'm gonna bone your girlfriend, my good man. There's a lot of them in this episode. I was like, because of your head hole made me laugh way harder than I should have.
So to start off, everyone, welcome to week 3 of our October spooky episodes of supernatural, like Halloween-ish types of things. We don't have a name for it. We're 2 years in though, but every October we try to do shows that are Halloween supernatural based, something to kind of keep the theme of the month. So that being said, we got to this show, Deadbeat, which I don't think any of us had any real prior knowledge of, correct?
No, not me.
No.
Negative.
It's weird for a show that was on a streaming network and lasted 3 seasons and wasn't that long ago for none of us to even know it existed.
That's what I said in the chat, because when I went to watch it, and I'm thinking it's a 1-season thing. I'm like, it explained that it 1 season it bombed. It was it went under the thing, under the radar. And all of a sudden I see 3 seasons and go, how have I never heard of this if it's 3 seasons?
And fairly good reviews.
Is this the first Hulu original we've done?
What about Rutherford
one.
Falls?
Rutherford Falls was Peacock.
That's a Peacock original.
There's so many fucking streaming sites
Yeah,
now.
it's tough to remember who does what.
Yeah, I feel like it's not the first one, but this is also an early streaming original, I'd say, right? 2014?
Yes.
No, Dave is Fox.
Yeah,
no,
Dave is on FX.
FX, yeah.
So veiny.
Shows you can go back and listen to, by the way. S1E1pod.com, by the way. All our social media can be found there everywhere you can listen to us. But if you're listening to us right now, you probably already know how to listen to us. But again, go to S1E1pod.com. We'll give you the links to our socials. S1E1pod on Twitter, Instagram, just about everywhere else. You can search us. Google's easy. You'll find us if you're looking for us.
It's a 2014. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I guess in this streaming age, things move so quickly. Where I was trying to think of it, I was like, obviously we would have had Netflix and everything, but I don't even think we had Hulu in 2014.
Yeah, we did. It was free.
Yeah, Hulu was free.
Oh, I'm saying I didn't have it. Like, I didn't even.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was yet.
I'd have to look it up. If I had Hulu though, I have it through like my Spotify. I have a free account because they had like a promotion a decade ago, so I got it through that. But I don't watch a lot of Hulu. I mean, I use Hulu because of this show a lot. So when we cover a show,
has
and it's
a lot
on
of
Hulu,
stuff for our show. Like,
there's a lot of sitcoms that just kind of rest on Hulu, but I don't think they do a phenomenal job compared to other streaming networks really advertising what they have.
No, we use Hulu mostly to catch up on things that are current season, right? Like, oh, I'll watch the Goldbergs the next day on Hulu or something like that. Like, I don't. That's usually what we use it for.
Yeah,
like
they're a little more unique than, say, a Netflix in that they have pretty up-to-date shows. Like, even like wrestling, you can watch like the next day condensed.
That's what I use it for.
And they have like the Hulu Live TV. So they offer some things that some of the other streamers don't, but they don't really promote their content maybe as well as they should. Maybe that's how we didn't know about this one.
I believe they're also the exclusive place to watch stuff from FX. So like if you're watching like anything like that, What We Do in the Shadows or anything like that, if you want to watch that like the next day or binge the old seasons, it's all on Hulu.
But Hulu's always been around. Like they've been along, not as long as Netflix, but they've been around for a long time. But they're more like they're like the Zune of the streaming platforms.
Oh, I wouldn't say
Netflix-
that.
No,
At
no,
the
no.
time
But they've
they
been
were.
around. No, they've been around for almost as long as Netflix. Since Netflix, I'll say this with this asterisk. Since Netflix became popular and went digital only, because Netflix for a while, you could get the DVDs in the mail, and then they transitioned. So Hulu's
the
been around
post little
since then.
envelopes. I wish I looked it up though, because Netflix makes sense. We're like, it's the net, and we're using 90s terminology and movie slang. Netflix. You're like, okay, but what does Hulu mean?
Huge uncle, lederhosen, uncle.
You didn't have two U words you could have went with.
You sound literally like somebody who's in military training on their first day. They're like, quick, say it in the military. Like Echo, Bravo, Uncle, Umbrella.
It actually comes from Mandarin, and it means interactive recording and bottle gourd. I don't know what the second part is for, but
I'm sure they're using it for the interactive recording part. But well, that makes a lot of sense.
I kind of want
Bottle gourd.
I want a bottle gourd after I heard that terrible acronym he tried to do.
Aw,
I kid.
I just got it.
I'm gourd. Oh no.
That name sounds familiar.
But yeah, I mean, we should probably just get right into this episode.
Yeah, Deadbeat, baby.
Yeah, Deadbeat time. So it starts right off with like this narration, and if I was to read the entirety of it, you hear the main character narrating over just kind of a little montage of things going around. And he says, ghosts tend to stick around when they have some sort of unfinished business.
Like in Casper.
Yes, and most ghost things.
Who you gonna
Continuing-
call? Somebody else.
Yeah. Continuing on, oftentimes that type of haunting will give some sort of insight into what that unfinished business is. And finishing unfinished business, well, that's literally my business. And we do get a look at the main character during that briefly. It's kind of a lot of external shots, and you do see a little bit of ghost activity in it. It was weird. It was like, it wasn't the intro to the show, but it felt like it could have been. Like they could have used that to start every episode.
Man, I looked up the main character here. I looked like you're just like going through his IMDb.
He's in like a lot of stuff.
He's done a ton of stuff, but I did see that he's got
owned
this
the
movie.
early 2000s.
Well, he's got this movie coming out now where it's like him, and you're like, okay. It's like, ooh, and Richard Dreyfuss, and you're like, ooh, okay. And then fucking Napoleon Dynamite, and you're like, oh, okay. And fuck, who else is in it?
And Rob
Danny
Zombie's
Glover.
wife.
And Danny Glover's in it. And I was like, okay, this is promising. This could be interesting. And then it was like, and also Danny Masterson. And I was like, this movie's not coming out. This will never actually get released. These poor people probably put so much time and effort
They're
into
gonna have
this
to like
movie. and it is
digitally
just gonna
change it
get
to somebody
shuttled.
else.
Or they're going to have to digitally put over Topher or somebody over Danny Masterson's face and like
What was
redo it.
who was it? There was a movie that came out not long ago, right? Where they digitally changed it so it's just Tig Notaro the whole time instead.
Oh,
Shit.
fuck, yeah.
What was it?
I'm like, what a gigantic undertaking that is, huh? I can't remember now.
Was
Yeah, I
it
can't
the
remember what
Chris
movie it
Pratt
was.
movie with the future?
Yeah, it was a future movie for sure, I think.
Oh, what was that called?
I literally
The
have
Tomorrow
no idea
War?
what you're talking about.
I'm looking it up right now.
I
think
forget what
it's the
happened.
Tom-
but
I think it's the
yeah,
Tomorrow
okay,
War.
nope, yep. He replaced Chris D'Elia in a movie.
That's what it was. Chris D'Elia,
In
yeah.
Army of the Dead.
Oh, I was way off.
Because Chris D'Elia did some stuff with people who were not old enough to vote.
Yep.
So,
Chris D'Elia,
Oh.
bad
and,
man.
and we won't get too into that. So, yeah, getting right back into this episode, we get into the opening scene and we see the main character. What's his name again? Kevin, right? So
Heck.
Kevin's sitting there and he's talking to like a older, not super old, like a, I don't know, they're in their late 40s, early 50s, probably Korean couple.
Like a middle-aged couple.
Yeah. Right off the bat, I'm very confused by this character and how I feel about Kevin. So as he's talking to them, he says like these disturbances of which we spake over the phone.
I don't get that.
I don't get that
This
joke.
whole part.
Okay, so this whole part confused me because I'm like, is this whole dude's shtick that he says things wrong? But then he says this is a crew? to the Asian couple, and I'm like, is that a racist Asian joke?
So
He
I
was
thought
definitely racist throughout this whole thing because when
he said sclabble as well at some point.
Oh, I didn't
yeah.
hear that.
So I didn't know if he
Yeah.
was playing into the like Asian RL thing and he just didn't
Yeah, he
understand
was.
how that worked and was doing it wrong because he's dumb. But the spake thing made no sense. But I don't know if this was all supposed to be plays on how he interprets their accent.
I don't think he's doing it on purpose though, because he apologizes to them.
But he doesn't do it again. Like the
That's
rest of
what
the
I don't
episode.
get. It's like they wrote it and then they took it away and it's
I feel
forgotten.
like they shot the first scene. They were like, this doesn't really work, and they were like, fuck it, we already shot it.
Yeah, I don't know. I was super confused. And it's like, it's tough to even go through all the dialogue without just addressing that right off the bat. 'Cause it's like the
Yeah.
first line he said.
But,
But,
he reminds me of, have you seen Haley Joel Osment now? The kid from The
Yeah,
Sixth
I can
Sense?
see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks like him, and I feel like if they had him in the movie, in this show instead, it would have been more successful because of the Sixth Sense tie-in.
That's true.
That's
You
a
probably-
good point, yeah.
It's like the same plot almost.
I feel like he could also be in like a boy band with like John Gabris and Josh Gad. Like, I feel like those three dudes would be like a perfect pairing, or like a Three Stooges type of comedy.
Okay, maybe not a boy band, but
Well, he was in Together.
he was?
He was in the movie. He was
in
the,
the movie.
he was
Oh,
he was he was the one who fired the Bob Bass at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got like really funny bleached like 90s bleach tips
Right.
in it. But you see the picture of him in that, you're like, oh, like it weirdly all comes
I'll
together.
have to check back on it. But yeah, so eventually, what this conversation leads to is that he's like interviewing this couple to see what's going on because Kevin's a medium and he's being hired by this couple to deal with the ghosts that they're having in their attic. And they've been hearing like creaking noises and things like, of that nature. And they show him a Scrabble, like letter A. And they said that they found this. He's like, oh, I've seen this before. And this is when he says like, oh, it's a tile for, and as he says, Scrabble. He says it's a popular word game. You make words out of these cute tiles here. They're obviously thinking that when he says that I've seen this before, that he meant in cases like this with paranormal activity. But in fact, he meant he's physically seen a Scrabble tile before.
Yeah, I didn't like this scene at all.
I think it put an early bad taste in my mouth, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I will say, initially I was like, motherfuck, I'm gonna hate this show. And my opinions
I
did
just
change
don't
going
get
on,
it.
but
That's the only
this
like,
opening
I don't
scene is just
understand
not,
it.
it's
It
not
just-
a good first foot forward, you know what I mean?
It just doesn't. One, it's not a good first step forward, and two, it just doesn't line up with his character throughout the rest of the episode. Like he doesn't.
I
seem like
don't think they're going with the racist thing. I don't.
I
but I
think it
don't know
was,
what they're
though.
going
I think
with.
it was. I think it was like a subtle.
I didn't think they wanted to be straight racist about it. I think they wanted to make it like he's an idiot, though.
I
And
think
he's-
they.
I feel like he's
I
an
think
idiot and
they
they'll
should have had
understand more.
stronger accents for that joke to make sense because they didn't even really have accents.
No,
So
I
he
that's
think
speaks
it's part of the
Korean at one
joke,
point.
though, is that he's overplaying it because he doesn't have the perception.
It's like, yeah, I felt that it was he thought he was speaking to them correctly by pronouncing things in a way he thought they would understand.
Maybe.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I guess
I
it
don't
might be
know.
that
But
he's
that's
really bad at
racist.
dealing with alive people.
No, Gordo, I'm not denying that that's racist in nature, but it's like, I know we pull from The Office all the time, and me especially. There's a lot of times where Michael would do things like that, and it wasn't, the act is kind of racist, but it's not done through malice because it's through like ignorance and not understanding.
Right, it's not.
So you can like get away with the comedy a little bit. But I just think that whatever they were trying to do here didn't land and it didn't make enough sense. So it just starts you off going like, what's happening?
Well, I mean, like you said with The Office, like you get the idea because you have a idea of the character. You have a portrait of the character. You know what I mean? You know them. This guy we don't know. This is like opening scene, like line like 2 or 3.
It is kind of odd in the opening of the first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, the way that this all kind of works out is he's going to have to consult with the ghost to see what this actually means. And that's when we get into the actual intro of the show, which was just kind of some like an instrumental piece with another montage kind of showing the city and him walking through it. There wasn't a lot to it. It works for the
There's,
show.
like,
It's nothing special.
Ghost visions kind of floating around.
Yeah. If you didn't know, if you watched just the intro alone, you wouldn't know that it was a comedy-based show necessarily, other than kind of the clips of him making food. Like he was like eating breakfast in a shitty apartment.
Yeah, and seeing the ghost
Yeah.
for this made me think of, what was that show? Was it Dead to Me or Dead Like Me? Do you remember that show that was like the girl had passed away and it was sort of similar to this, but not
Dead
comedy
Like
from-
Me.
Dead like
Dead
me.
Like Me, yeah. Like that, the intro made me think of that show.
And then post-intro, unless anyone else has any feelings towards it,
No, didn't really affect me.
did it, I mean, do you think it helps the show, hurts the show, just exists?
Just
think it
exists.
was-
I think it's so quick
yeah.
too that you're just like, okay, on to the next thing. I don't think it would turn you off from
Yeah, it is what it is.
anything.
It wasn't quick though. I didn't perceive it as quick. It was a little bit longer than I feel like it would have benefited from being quick.
I
But
needed lyrics. Great
It did.
lyrics.
it needed
lyrics to
lyrics
tell
to
a story.
explain to yeah. Exactly.
I think they should have just taken the narration from the beginning and put it over.
and put it over
just
it,
that
yeah.
intro. And
Yeah,
it
like I
would've
said,
been
that intro
fine.
scene, that first opening scene could have been the intro,
Yeah.
you know? But instead it had like the same music and montagey stuff to it too. It was like, they were like, which one do we use? I don't know, put them both in. See what people like.
I mean, it's a
We were talking about
pilot.
this a little while
They're
ago.
trying
too, Ferg.
stuff
It's
out.
like,
Not knowing episode 2, like I would be curious to see how they go about it the next time.
it seems like the kind of show that if you could jump into this show, I feel like, and watch it from anywhere so far, at least it doesn't seem like a show that has one linear plot for the most part, or enough that it wouldn't distract you. But then it would be super confusing if that was just the intro and you came in on episode 3 or something.
Now, I didn't watch the version from the drive. Did your version bleep out the swears, or were those in the show?
It's bleeped.
Is
okay.
bleeped.
I was just curious if that was my version or not.
Well, you figure if it's bleeped on Hulu, who's like the original people to do it, then it's going to be bleeped everywhere else, most likely, because they're the ones who presented it.
Well, it's syndicated in other places, though. Like, it's on Crave TV in Canada. It's syndicated in a few other countries, so it might be a standards and practices thing for those countries.
Because the first time I watched it, I did watch it on Hulu. But yeah, so the next scene from there, we get into the attic of this Korean couple's house, and he's walking up there alone, and he's talking like to the ghost. So you can see that, at least in this moment, you know he's not a bullshit artist. You know he believes in the ghost world and everything like that. And he's saying like, okay, you obviously chose this tile for a reason. And he places it down where there's some other, Scrabble tiles. And he's like, all right, so let's see what this is about. He does say a haro in this moment, by the way.
He does say hero
He does.
here, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Again, racist.
No, but it's not an Asian ghost or anything.
he doesn't know
He doesn't
that.
know that. That's why he said haro.
That being
Like-
said, there's like a table that it was like a little end table with like some stuff on it, like a cart or whatever. It was it moved quickly. But during that, while he's kind of waiting around, it just moves and falls over. And that's when he just like, it's bleep. He's like, oh, fucking. I think he says fart at the end.
Oh, he screams, "You fucking fart." And I was like, is this the moment where I have to fight Gordo for the whole episode?
Yes, it is. But he didn't release a fart.
No.
I
We
was
can all be
wrong.
thankful for that.
I'll say his reaction, that made me laugh because I was a little like, I wasn't sold on this character, but that caught me, and his reaction genuinely made me laugh when that happened.
Yeah, this whole scene made me start, like, I feel like one thing about this show as we start getting into the plot here is I feel like you would have to be blind to not see so many of these jokes coming. But
There's a
you
lot of
start
that.
to get endeared to it a little bit too as it goes on, which is pretty interesting.
His character, I don't know. At times he's a little too dumb for me, and it gets annoying.
Oh, my pet
And-
peeve.
Yeah, so there's like, if you're just playing that he's like kind of a stoner loser character, then it's like whatever. But some of the stuff, like even here, so the next thing that happens is you look at all the Scrabble tiles that are laid out, and they start to move. And he's like, oh, what's going on? Angina, Angus? And then he just starts talking to himself about like, please tell me you're spelling Angus burger. Oh, I remember this one time I had an Angus patty. It was so juicy. And I was like, huh?
Yeah, he's like, oh, I didn't eat it. I performed cunnilingus on it.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck is happening
It
here?
was just like,
Angolingus.
Luckily, the second half of this
All
show
right.
is much stronger than the first half.
yeah, it was just like at
Yeah.
that point, I was like, that dialogue of him talking to
Bad.
himself about eating. He's talking to either himself or a ghost about how much he likes cheeseburgers and how he licked it like he was performing cunnilingus. It's like, what is this? Like, what is this?
Yeah, it's not funny. And I wish when he said Angus, I was like, is he going to be talking about the movie Angus? Is he
I
talking
wish
about
it
Angus
was about the movie
Bethune?
Angus.
Because I'd be so happy. Not that I don't love a cheeseburger.
Usually, like, when we do these shows, the first, like, up to this point, it feels like a roller coaster. Because, if you haven't seen it, like, did we ask how many of us saw it before?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I think none of us had any
Resounding
knowledge
zero.
of it.
Okay, so none of us seen it. So it's like a roller coaster. You go up, and then you don't know if, like, you're going, like, straight down or it's going to be a fun ride. Like, and it's still like that right now. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm still going up a little bit here.
At
Guys
this
don't
Like
point,
this is like you're going up on the roller coaster and then like one of the seatbelt things snaps off and you're like, okay, so I'm either gonna fucking die or I'll
You'd
make
be
it through
fine.
this and have a
Inertia would
story
keep
to
you
tell.
in.
at this point, if we're talking to just this specific moment, I'm like, fuck this show. I was like, but between all the weird stuff with the couple in the beginning and him talking about eating out a cheeseburger, I'm like, he's trying too hard. He's overacting. It's like this typical, I don't know, this, I know what this character is, and it's just a little too much for me. And like, it becomes
forced.
old. Yeah, it gets a little old quick. But it does settle down from there. This is like the worst of it. It's kind of up front.
Which is
Yeah.
good.
I do feel like it lays off of it, and I wonder if, again, this is one of those things where it's hard to in our job, but I would love to see if the second episode doesn't lean in on this weird shit.
Yeah, it was one of those, like, it felt like the writers were trying too hard to make you laugh in the beginning. Like, we really need to hook them. And they were just throwing too much against the wall really early instead of letting you just kind of digest what was happening.
Yeah, it's a perfect like we talk about in certain sitcoms that actors knowing their characters. And I feel like this guy, do we say who plays him?
We brought
Taylor
him up earlier.
Labine.
I don't know if we said his name.
What's
what was
his
it?
name?
Taylor Labine.
Taylor
Or
Labine.
Labine. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but Taylor Labine or Labine.
Mr. Labine.
Pardon me.
But either way, I mean, I don't think that
It's what it is. I hope I
kind of
win.
knows his character at this point yet.
Well, here's the thing, though, but he does in like 5 minutes. That's what's so weird about this episode, is that it feels like nobody has any idea what's going on until they leave this attic
yeah.
set piece, and then you're like, oh, I get this show now.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the show up to this point, but no, you're absolutely right. Like, it's so weird. It's such a weird shift after you get out of here.
I feel like part of it, too, is he needs better people. Like, not that the Korean family is not good enough to play off of him, but they're not there for very long, right? So, like, when all of a sudden this kid pops up, the ghost shows up, and you're like, oh, interaction with people make this character a lot more palatable, because he's not just, like, yelling crass nonsense into a void, which is what it feels like up until he meets the ghost, right? Because he's not really talking to the Asian couple. He's in the attic just basically yelling into the void. And then finally the ghost shows up and he can be like a real person interacting with another real person, and it sort of settles it down a little.
Yeah, this is because when we meet that ghost for the first time, it happens like right here because he's popping up as he's doing that whole burger, thing. He pulls up. He's like, no. He's like, it's Angie, not Angus. And when he starts to interact with the ghost, Daniel's his name, right?
Yes.
When he starts to interact back with Daniel, he's like, wait, you can hear me? So then they start to have this conversation. Kevin introduces himself. He says, God, I can't even pronounce his last name to quote him. Paklioglu? What was it?
That's all right. Just call him Pack.
Yeah, well, he says, just call me Pack. And he's like, that's what my friends call me.
Glue, maybe?
Yeah. That's what my friends call me. Well, my friend, my drug dealer. Like, that's
So
his
he's-
only friend.
He's actually called Pack because it's a reference to Pac-Man, who
That's what I
constantly gets
heard.
chased by ghosts.
Which is that's a good little touch. That's some smart writing.
I thought he was in reference to Pac, the wrestler.
Yes, him as well. I think that was the main inspiration, but also Pac-Man.
X-Pac or Six-Pac?
At the
No.
time, he
Pac.
would have been Adrian Neville, the king of the cruiserweights.
Oh, that guy.
Sorry, Nick, if you're listening. But yeah, so he's asking the ghost, hey, I'm here to kind of fix whatever's going on because the couple downstairs wants you out. And we find out a little bit about like the situation. And Daniel basically went to war and got killed.
You didn't mention that he also has a hole in his head.
He's got a
There
bullet
is,
head.
it's not super gruesome,
No.
but yeah, it is
no.
apparent that,
And also the ghosts in this are like a little translucent, but they're not like floaty.
yeah, it's kind of got that,
Yeah, they're gray see-through.
Yeah, there's like a filter to them.
yeah, it's got,
It's got like a haunted mansion vibe to it a little bit.
a little bit of that, like visually, not without the floaty
visually.
part. Yeah, the way like it's presented to us. Yeah, but yeah,
Like
he's talking.
the Frighteners, the movie The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox.
Oh, yeah,
which
yeah.
also has a similar plot to this, where, he goes around helping people with ghosts.
There's a
It's kind of
lot
a
of
bummer
things
in
with
this.
similar plots to this. This is not like other
Yeah,
than
this
his
is a
character being
fairly-
weird. Yeah, this has been used.
I just mean that it had a similar plot, and I was going by that the ghosts look like the ghosts in that, where they keep the way they died, but they're grayed out, but see through.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense with other afterlife stuff, right? Like if he's going on, maybe because I guess you don't continue on. I don't know how to dissect it, but you would think in the
Yeah.
afterlife you don't have a bullet in your head anymore.
Well, this is like the thing we were talking about a couple weeks ago with Grandpa Munster, where like, did he get turned into a vampire at 80 years old?
Yeah.
Like, and you're stuck that way? And I know Ferg, you had your thing about that he wasn't feeding, but like, that's a bummer. Like, I mean, look, everybody has their own opinions in the afterlife, and everybody would like it to be this idyllic, perfect thing for them if that's what they believe in. You'd like to think that if you were blown away, like, you'd be like, oh, I'm dead now, there's an afterlife, can I have the rest of my fucking head back? Like, what a fucking bummer.
I guess
And also, how come
But
mediums can
you-
see ghosts, but ghosts can't see mediums? That doesn't seem fair either. I feel bad for these poor ghosts who can't be like, oh, that fucking person can tell what a ghost is, I'm gonna talk to them.
Well, if you actually listen to some mediums, they do that. They're like a beacon.
oh
Sure.
Yeah, but I feel like it can't be as, I mean, 8 billion people have died in the history of mankind, or
You know that for
billion.
sure.
That's all?
But you know what I'm saying? Like, you think anybody who's a beacon all day long would be like, shut the fuck up! Like,
They
just
do.
trying to get coffee.
So
They
I would say
You should-
though, I guess if I was to theorize, so in his case, Daniel's case, right? He's walking around with a bullet in him still because he hasn't gone on. That's the difference between being a ghost and being in like the complete afterlife.
Yeah. He hasn't moved
Oh,
on.
okay.
So once he moves on,
He gets his body back.
yeah, everything's fine.
I
think.
think that's another one of my issues. Just to backpack off Joe's like 8 billion people dying thing. That's one of my issues with this show is I would have liked there to just been ghosts everywhere. Like in every scene in the background, everything, because there would just be ghosts everywhere that
If
we
he can
don't
see
see, but he
ghosts.
can.
It should be like when you put the glasses on and they live. You're like in
Yeah.
the bank and every third person is an alien or whatever. Like, that would be good if they
Yeah.
just didn't acknowledge it, though.
And I get it, that would be expensive. So
Right.
that's probably
This is
why they
a
didn't do it like that. But it would've been
Fledgling
nice.
new show on a fairly fledgling new TV platform. Probably didn't have the budget.
So Daniel's whole thing was he went to war again. Obviously, as we said with the bullet, he didn't make it through. But beforehand, he used to spend time up in this attic with his girlfriend, Angela. And they would, I don't know, basically all we find out is they were in love and they would like make out and stuff, but they never went all the way.
She
And-
cock blocked him.
I think the army cockblocked him.
Yeah.
I don't think that she
No, it
did.
said he signed up for it, so he
He wasn't
cock-blocked
drafted,
himself.
he enlisted.
Well, he thought he was coming back. And unfortunately, because he didn't come back, he didn't get to come on her back. So,
Hubris. The old no-come hubris. I do love the idea, though, that this dude's been pining and can't go into the afterlife for all these years because he just hasn't gotten laid. Like, that's when you start liking this show more, where you're like, okay, I kind of see the conceit of where this is going.
yes, because it's not in a lot of these stories, right? In a more conventional tale where Ghost has unfinished business, it would be, I need just one more day with her, one more chance to say I love you. But he's telling him that I just want to have sex with her once. I died a virgin. I never got to have sex with her. So
and also, for that to happen, I need you to possess I need to
Yeah, it has
possess
to be
your
through your
body, so
body.
that you can go have sex with her.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about this whole story, and I mean, we get into it later, that I just don't get. If you were a virgin, homie, just go for anybody.
Well, I think he can. I think he's intrinsically connected to this person. That's what's keeping him there. I think is part of
He
it.
just said he died a virgin. He didn't say that he you know.
Yeah, I don't think you can just be. I don't think he's. I think it's he died a virgin, but he wanted to have sex with this one person. He didn't want to have
What
sex with
happens
just
if she
anybody.
was dead?
If she was dead, that
Well,
would be a
he's-
toughie.
Yeah, well, then he just move on and find her up there, I guess. But
I guess the payoff that she was going to be a lot older too.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I
right
was
away.
saying.
yeah,
I'm
You
like,
can telegraph the
it's
jokes
an
in
old.
this.
It's definitely an old war. It's not like a new one. I'm like, it's going to be a really old lady that he has to be.
Right, like it's such an easy joke that you're like, I know where this is going.
yeah, so the whole thing, though, I mean, the whole theory of like I need to have sex with her. Yeah, it has to be done consensually, right? He can't just like follow her through life and just the next time she's having sex, like possess that person's body. I mean, I guess you could, but that
I mean,
seems
he
morally
could.
upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, he could, but I don't think he has that. I don't think he can leave that area. I mean, they don't really get into the lore of the ghost or anything like that in the series, but
Yeah, it seems like
it
a lot of them are
seems like
trapped
they're
where they
connected.
are. Yeah.
yeah, it seems
Because
like
we
they're
only
connected.
meet one other ghost later on, but it seemed like he was also very much stuck where he was, and we'll talk about him soon. But Kevin says to him like, "Oh, like you're talking about possessions, like I don't do those anymore. So if there's like anything else I can do, like so I can pay my rent, let's get to it." And the ghost tells him like, "Hey, I'm only here for Angela. That's it." And it's like a little bit, "You serious? Dead serious. Oh, that was clever. I know, ha ha ha." And it was like, it was fine.
That didn't really
I
land
liked
either,
it.
yeah.
It was quick, so it was fine.
I liked it too.
But now, next scene, we have not Daniel, I'm sorry, Kevin is just hanging out at his drug dealer's house, who he mentioned before as his only friend, who I believe his name is Rufy.
His name is Rufus, so
Rufy.
they call him Rufy.
Yeah.
And he's a drug dealer called Rufy. Which is,
interesting name for a drug dealer. And while he's there, he asks for a Happy Meal. I don't know. Is that a drug thing? I don't know. I mean, it is a drug thing, but is that a real drug thing? I don't do any of these things or recreationally, so I don't know what
I've
that
never
means.
heard of it. I've never
It
heard
looks
of
like they're
that.
just smoking weed, by the way, just for
They are
clarification for
smoking
people
weed.
listening. They're not sitting there doing anything crazy, but
Maybe they're smoking roofies.
it should be an interesting night.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing a good night's sleep. So
Yeah,
imagine
probably
probably
gonna
knock you
pass
out pretty
out.
quick.
But yeah, no, I don't know what a Happy Meal was, but it was whatever he was asking of Rufy to give him. And
It's
as
an
he's-
unsatisfying amount of weed that comes with a toy.
and there's a good joke here because as he's trying to like pay him, he's like, "Oh," Rufy's counting the money. He's like, "Oh man, you're a little light." And then he says to Rufy, "You're a little dark." Rufy is black, so "you're a little light" meaning financially you don't have all the money, but him replying with "you're a little dark" was pretty funny.
Yeah, this is also where I got the one like actual laugh at him mispronouncing things where he refers to the Paranormal Festivities movies, because I immediately just thought of those movies as Christmas movies and was like, oh, that would be fun.
Well, I don't think he was mispronouncing it. I think in this world, the paranormal activity movies just don't exist.
Oh, I sort of read it as he
Did it-
just doesn't know what they're called, and that's what he thought they were called.
I think it just would have been expensive
If it was-
for them to name drop the actual movie.
Yeah, I
from
think if it
another
was in
company.
line with the jokes from earlier, he would have said like paranormal like activities, or like he wouldn't have said the word right,
Even
He
like
wouldn't have said a
racist
different word.
Asian activity movie.
But
This is not what that means, but that's kind of funny.
But yeah, he's explaining to Rufus. He's like, right now things aren't going good for me. Like I'm not getting a lot of jobs. People, there's like people aren't as afraid of ghosts, or they're just more desensitized towards like this haunting thing. So, I'm not getting much work. And Rufus is saying like, you're selling yourself short. He's like, you have like this crazy ability, and like you need to capitalize on that. Like you're in charge of your clients. And he said, the clients are usually more willing to put up a ghost than me. And then they just start getting high. So while they're smoking, they're watching television, and there's this type of like daytime TV show. And we have a guy interviewing a girl named Chamomile White, and she's a medium, just like Kevin is. So we think. And he's, the host is advertising her new book. which was The Ghost Who Came Inside.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have a supernatural erotica book idea in the works, and I'm wondering if you guys had to name a supernatural erotica romance novel, what would you guys call it?
Do you think that there was going to be a quick answer to that? Like we would have one
That's
ready?
not one of those things like I know we're quick-witted sometimes.
Prep us with that. Like there's no way we're going to have a name for ghost erotica ready on hand.
Why don't you go first, Gordo?
The Missing Link or My New Kink, an erotic romp with Bigfoot.
That's not supernatural. That's
Yes, it is.
cryptozoology.
It falls in the same.
It does not fall the same. All right, so over here, you're asking us for a question you can't even answer because you're busy writing Bigfoot porn. On to the next thing. Fucking Christ.
Yeah, pause everything.
I tried really hard to come up with one, and my brain is just empty.
Well, yeah, if I knew that we could use all that kind of stuff too, yeah. The hot nest monster.
Yeah,
there you
see,
go.
there you go.
Yeah, but that's not ghosts.
Fine, if you want ghosts, I mean,
Paranormal cumtivities. Okay, can we move on from this, please?
Oh, but the name of this episode, The Sexorcist.
Oh,
That
yeah,
would
there you
also
go.
work.
Anal McBeal, but she's dead. I don't know. I can't do anything.
What?
Why did you go with Ally McBeal?
We're a TV show podcast. Somewhere close to Flockhart's like
Nothing to do with anything. I like how he just said it, but then he just had to add, but she's dead. So, like that's in parentheses on the actual title.
Yeah, it's parenthetical.
There
was the original Anal McBeal.
At the end of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
There was the original Anal McBeal, but then they wanted to do a Halloween sequel. And then
Right.
so the new one, instead of calling it Anal McBeal 2, it just says, but she's dead.
Vagina the Teenage Witch. I don't know. Just stop saying things.
Yeah, let's move right on from this. But yeah, so her book is called The Ghost Who Came Inside. And it's known that she's going to be appearing at one of the bookstores tomorrow for a book signing. So it has to be like a local daytime show, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming this is. Are they in New York? Did we figure that out?
It looked New York, but
I feel like it's
I don't
New
know
York.
if it was
Yeah.
ever outwardly said.
You're in
No idea
generic
what it is.
city B.
I feel like it's either New York or it's a different city they use for New York, like Vancouver or Toronto.
I was going
or
to say it's
something.
probably Vancouver.
Yeah. I feel like if you pay attention to some of the stuff like in the background, you'd probably notice like building, like signs in shops and stuff that would probably give it away.
it is New York City.
New York.
It is.
Okay.
So Rufus tells them, hey, you need to go to this book signing, spark up a conversation. Because, like, two of you have a lot in common, both being mediums and all. And Kevin's like, no, a girl like her, like, we're from different worlds. Like, we can't talk. Like, that's never going to work. He goes on to say, like, she's a celebrity, she's beautiful, and I'm just this lowly jackass who can't even afford my rent. And he's like, matter of fact, I might be homeless by the time I finish this joint.
It seems kind of crazy to me to have that power where you're a medium to not be able to monetize it enough that you
Yeah.
can't pay your rent. Like that seems insane to me.
What you
Well, he
do
gets
is
into it.
What you do is you find a ghost and you become friends with them, and then you just have them do tricks. So no one else can see it. They're doing the tricks. You're making the money.
So, like a magic show.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he can hear and see ghosts, right? You find a ghost, be like, hey, I'll help you move on. You do that once a day, be like, hey, I'm gonna help you move on, but you gotta just come help me make some money. You
Just
can do that.
Tell me where your buried treasure is.
Yeah.
it
Imagine at one
depends-
point you've got to hit somebody who's got money hid away.
Yeah, it depends how like nice of a person you want to be, right? Like you could probably just use that ghost to help like rob banks and shit too. But
Yeah.
I like how Ferg's just a street performer performing simple magic tricks instead.
No, it wouldn't be a street performer. I'd be in Vegas, baby.
Right.
This is how David
Lift
Blaine
me.
does it.
The great Fergdini.
That's right.
But Kevin's telling him like, hey, you know what? Like, I think I'm gonna have to do this whole possession thing for the kid who died in the war. And he tells him how he died a virgin, and he just wants, my body to have sex with his girlfriend. And Rufus is like, wait, like that's it? Like, all you have to do is get laid to get paid? It's like, why aren't you doing that? He's like, when was the last time you had sex? He's like, I don't know. What's today? Friday? He's like, Tuesday. Oh, Tuesday? So 8 years ago.
That was also predictable.
Yeah, very
Obviously.
telegraphed.
Yeah.
I think the next line I actually have in my notes is, so this lady's going to be super old, right? Like, it's like they just kept putting it on and on and on.
Yeah, I thought it was obvious from the start. Like, it just made sense to me, like, looking at him, because Daniel's attire, granted, he wasn't wearing anything, like, crazy, right? He looked like he just kind of had, like, pants and, like, a sleeveless, like a beater on or something, but yeah, there was something about his general look that didn't look like he was of modern day.
Right. I will say, though, the reveal when he figures it out, his comment made me laugh really hard, even knowing what the joke was. He's like, yeah, we'll get to it. It's very funny.
Because he does go back to the attic to tell Danny, like, you know, hey, I've reconsidered, I'm going to bone your girlfriend.
I want to know, like, did he knock on these Asian people's house, like, hey, I got to go talk to Danny, and just run through their house?
I think you're, like, on
does.
kind of like a retainer thing, right? Like, when
I feel like you're working on a contract at that point. Like, you're still in process.
If you're hiring the guy to, like, get ghosts out of your house, you probably have to understand that there might be, like, a little bit of back and forth, not a one-shot deal.
And also, if you have a ghost in your house, you don't want there to be a ghost in your house anymore. So you're probably pretty forgiving of whatever the person who's going to help you needs to do.
Do you tell the couple, like, what it is I have to do?
That's what I was wondering, too.
I think so, because of what happens later.
We'll see
in the
later on,
episode.
but, like, just in general, like, when he walks down the stairs the first time after meeting Danny, they go, hey, how'd it go? Like,
If
you have to be like,
he
wants me to fuck his old girlfriend.
If he's smart, he'd be telling them that this is some evil spirit, and they need to keep him on retainer.
Yeah.
Or else, like, they're fucked.
This is, like, nothing I've ever seen before.
Because right now, like, Danny's just this nice old soldier. He wasn't going to hurt anyone. They could have left him up there forever. Like, and not paid him. But, like...
I feel like, though, if you believe that there is an afterlife and you have proof of it, you probably karmically don't want to be doing things that are bad, and you probably don't want to be fucking with ghosts because you're someday going to be in an afterlife. So maybe, like, that's what keeps him from doing it.
Yeah, like, Kevin's character isn't, like...
He's not, like, malicious or mean.
Yeah, there's nothing... He doesn't do anything bad to anybody, right? Like, he's not a person in that, like, he's not very ambitious. He likes to do a lot of extra recreational things, and but he's not a bad human. He doesn't do anything bad to anybody else.
It's just ectoplasm everywhere. This morning he goes.
Big horny bird.
When he tells Danny that he's going to bone his wife, they go for the high five, which doesn't connect because one's a ghost. I think that was pretty telegraphed as well. He also makes it known this is a one-time deal, right? He's like, just so you know, like, I'm going to do this once, and you're not coming back every time you want to, dip your old wick, as he said.
I mean, that's fair. That's a fair question to ask.
He also asks if she's
into a
attractive.
booty call scenario.
But he does want to confirm that she's attractive. He says that she's very beautiful. So the next scene, he heads over to the house and knocks on the door, and a very attractive young girl opens the door. And from the second, again, like you guys said, the second she opened the door, you knew exactly where it was going. But he goes, Mrs. Danucci, I hope. And she's like, it's Danucci. Can I help you? And he's like, okay, this is going to sound a bit strange, and I understand that, but here it goes. I've been sent here by Daniel, your boyfriend who died. He's haunting a house that I've been hired to exorcise, and the only way that he'll move on is if he can possess my body and use it as a vessel with which to make love to you. I'm here to fuck you.
That fucking got me, though.
Yeah.
He goes, he fucking telegraphs it so well at that point.
And her reaction, fairly enough, is, I'm calling the cops. It's like, no cops. And she says, I'm not having sex with you. He's like, technically you'd be having sex with your boyfriend, so no harm, no foul. She says,
this is where the show starts to pick up, and I really start to enjoy it. And a lot of it is the dialogue and the rapid fire. Like, all of his
it's a lot of quick
exchange
lines.
Here is so funny between the two of them.
Because she says, I'm a lesbian. And he's like, that's just
That's
a
just a
phase.
phase
You're
you're
in mourning.
mourning.
That's probably the best line of the whole thing.
And then corrects her grammar. Like,
Yeah.
even after, like, it's
For
fucking
who?
perfect.
For whom? And then he's like, okay, hold on, let's try this again. And they shut the door, and he does the knock and re-enter. And then again, hi there. Are you Angie Danucci?
I love that he gets it wrong the
says
second
Danucci
time,
twice.
too.
And then when
So
she
he lives
says
in New
no,
York and doesn't know the last name, Danucci.
and then it's like, no, okay, is there anyone here by that name? And she says, yes, she's watching her program. Nona, I think the whole, like, just hearing the watching her program telegraphs how
You
old
know
she is.
old.
Yeah.
It also could have been stories. Watching my stories.
What's really weird, too, is I looked up the actor who plays Nona in this, and she only has like 10 acting credits total.
She's been acting for 70 years.
No, she's been only acting for like, at this point, like 10 years, right? So she's like, old lady on bus in The Sopranos or whatever. So it's so weird to me that she's like an older woman. She gets into acting and she was like, oh, I'm going to get fucked by a slob who's actually a ghost. I'm going to do this acting role. Like, what a great thing to be like, fuck it, I'll do it.
Can you imagine if that was your grandmother and she's like, oh,
I was in a TV show.
And like you're like anything else, right? Like you would watch it and then it's like, oh, okay. Like I don't want to watch. Like as soon as you find out the plot of this show, you're like, I'm not watching it. I'm sorry.
I'll watch episode 2. I'm not in that one. I don't care.
Sorry, Gam. I can't watch this.
I love when it cuts back to him in this house now, too. I was like, is he just lining up and eating sugar cubes? Like, at first I was like, has he laid out a bunch of acid or something?
That's what I
This
thought,
was
too.
another joke I didn't get. Because
Yeah,
he's eating the sugar cubes and then he puts on her clothes when it's
He's
time for
clearly
her to leave.
super
I don't
high.
get it.
They
When-
force
when
a lot
did
with
that
this
happen?
character. I didn't know if the sugar cube thing was like another drug reference. I didn't get like if it intensified something or I don't know. Like not to sound like this like innocent idiot, but I really don't know a lot about drug stuff, so I didn't know what was going on here.
It
The
seems
only
like when he
thing I
leaves, though, he
know-
says something about he took some of her medicine or took some of her pills. So, like, maybe he took some of from her medicine cabinet or something. They don't explain it. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's really weird. But Jay, the only thing I've ever heard, which would make sense in this scenario, is that orange juice supposedly spikes acid highs.
Okay.
But I thought that the sugar cubes were acid.
But then you might think that you are a glass of orange juice and you spend the rest of your life never being able to be tipped over. And that's a bad thing, too.
I wonder if this was cut for time. If there was another scene or something.
There is no time. There is no time. It's Hulu. It's Hulu time.
Well,
Well, I think they're
depends.
still trying
This
to
was definitely
stick to
not
it.
planned to be a Hulu show, and Hulu picked it up. Like that would be my guess.
Also, like I said, it was syndicated out to other countries on standard television, so it would still have to fit a format for commercial.
Yeah, but why would Hulu present that, though, if it was their own original show? You know what I mean? Like, I can understand if we watched the syndicated version from a different country, but this should be the full raw. We should get Raw Dog Deadbeat.
I would guess, like I said, they made this pilot, shopped it around, got turned down. Hulu said, we'll buy it. And then they continued the show.
Most likely.
And then Hulu was like, but we have a few suggestions. Make the scene where he's clearly very high as confusing for the audience as possible. And they're like, done and done. Cut in post.
Yeah, it's almost like they were like, well, we don't have any added budget for this. So they brought it to a test audience and people were like, I don't get the first scene. Like, well, we already made it. So too late. But yeah, there was, so there's a point where he's sitting there at the table with this grandmother and she's now caught up to speed. She knows the situation. He asks her like about like, you know, does she know much about this kind of medium stuff? And she's like, oh yeah, no, I watch, what was her name? Chamomile White every time she's on my programs and that she's a fan of hers. But she says, that doesn't mean I'm going to go along with it. And when he asks why, she says, you know, Daniel was a beautiful boy. But sorry, my answer is no.
Doesn't she have a husband?
No, I
I
don't
think
think
we're
there's
to
a-
believe that maybe the husband's passed away. I mean, I imagine
Probably.
she would have had somebody because she has a granddaughter there.
Yeah,
Also,
but
why did you let this nut job in your house?
Yeah, like this dude comes in and to your teenage daughter starts saying all this weird shit, and she's an old lady in the house is like, yeah, come on in and eat some of my sugar cubes and we'll talk about this. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
yeah, I feel like he needed to reveal more than just Danny's name. Like I feel like he should have like quoted a love letter that he wrote that was like, you know, something stupid that was only between them. Like, I want to sniff the roses of your butt. Like,
yes. Well, he
Yeah,
kind of
maybe.
does that in that he leaves the Scrabble piece with her when he leaves. And she does give it a look. And you can tell that, like, obviously, you know, there's going to be more to the story, right? He's not just going to walk
I
off.
think he should have led with that. With
Yes.
how he
Correct.
got
yeah,
in.
exactly.
He's like,
That's
I
what I'm
have
saying.
this, you know, and he could have did more to explain how much he actually knows about the situation.
I'd like to think that if I was a medium in this situation and I had to explain myself to different people all the time like that, the first thing I would ask the ghost is, tell me something that only the two of you and no one else in the world would
Right.
know. That is
Right.
how you start this conversation. He's a professional. He's been doing this a while. That seems like day one stuff.
Also, just leave out the fucking part. Like, you have to come see the ghost.
Exactly.
Well,
Like, ease her into it at least. Don't start with like, I need to get it, lay some pipe. Like,
Well, in fairness,
yeah, but then what if the old lady's like, no, this happened once before. Somebody told me it was my ex-boyfriend. I ended up just fucking some hobo in an attic. I'm not, fool me once, but I'm not doing it
well,
again.
at first he was presenting it in fairness to the other girl, right? So his approach might have been different if he knew who it was at first, that it was Nona and not the younger girl. It does leave with her just kind of looking at that Scrabble piece, and we'll get back to her as we go along. The next scene, we just see him kind of like walking, through the city, and he spots that girl, Chamomile White, the television medium. And he's just kind of like following her instead of saying hi to her. He's just kind of like creeping around, which I didn't quite understand why he had to be so sneaky.
this
but-
scene went on way too long.
He's also following her like he's like the Pink Panther. Like he's
Yeah.
doing
Yeah,
like,
he is,
he's like
yeah.
over exaggerated detective, like hide behind here, she can't see me thing. And
all
she's
we-
just chugging Baja Blast for some reason. Like this whole scene is so
all we
confusing.
discover is that she leaves like a 7-Eleven or a store like that, and she gets like a giant blue Slurpee. And it's her hiding like in, like not in an alley, but like off to the side. And she just starts chugging it. And there's no explanation, and it does get touched on later. So, I mean, there is a payoff to it.
I do appreciate there was a payoff because at
But
this
in the
scene you're very
moment-
confused.
In the moment, was there like any theory as to what was going on? A lot of the show's telegraphed, but here I'm like, I thought it was like just like a guilty pleasure. Because she's supposed to be so like prim and proper. I thought like it was just a guilty pleasure that she liked slushies and she didn't want anyone to see it.
Yeah, that's what I got too.
No,
actually.
I half figured it out. I figured she does the supernatural stuff so then she can regurgitate the blue stuff so people think it's ectoplasm. and
You
stuff
figured
like
that out in that quick scene?
Yeah.
Liar.
Well, you're smarter
So-
than
I
us
swear to-
because
swear
I
to
had
God.
nothing on that.
So
Also, most unrealistic scene ever to watch somebody chug something like that, and then I feel like it was a missed opportunity to not cut to her being like, fuck my head.
Also,
'Cause you would have
keep in
immediate
mind you
frozen
had
head.
me watch the trailer for the show when you were giving us the show, so I've seen that she was a fake already. So
Okay.
I
Oh,
knew
so
she
you already
was
knew
fake.
that going into it.
the next scene is her in that book reading thing that she had promoted on the television show. And she's reading an excerpt from the book. And the line we hear is, even though he was gone, I could feel him around me, inside me. So it is ghost erotica. So at first I'm thinking like the book is about how she's a medium and that the name sounded like it was a sex thing, but it wasn't like deliberate, like she was ignorant towards it. But in reality, it is just ghost erotica.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, Gordo, we know you're
Sure-
a big fan
sure,
of
yeah.
at least some erotica that's not ghost oriented.
Bigfoot is in the world of ghosts.
I don't think he is.
He's
Listen,
not.
if it appears on the History Channel at like 2 a.m,
So
It's all
Canadian
about
car shows are also in the same world as ghosts.
There's a vast difference between cryptozoology and supernatural.
they all fall.
Very
into the
diff-
same
No,
thing.
it's not.
Aliens. and all
Aliens are
that
not
shit.
supernatural.
No,
Yes,
you're a
they
racist.
are.
You're a racist. You're lumping all this stuff in together.
I am not a racist. How
I
can
think
you
it's
be
like
racist
I
against
think they make him
Bigfoot?
like a speciesist.
There you go.
Damn species.
No,
all
it's
species
all
look the same.
supernatural. It's all spooky. It's all
I want to apologize to our listeners because, I've known Gordo for the majority of my life. I didn't know he was a speciesist until today. And I don't know if we have to formally put anything out in regards to the fact that he's speciesist, but
I
This
just
is
want
new-
to.
it's new information to all of us. And yeah, I don't know what we're going to do from this point forward, but this
I think it's fair to say this is Gordo's last episode.
Yeah, it most likely is.
S1E1 does not believe that Bigfoot is a ghost. All right.
That is a formal statement. And we all wholeheartedly, I can't speak on behalf of Nick, but I would like to think that he acknowledges that as well.
I didn't say Bigfoot was a ghost. I said Bigfoot is in the world of ghosts, in the universe of ghosts.
Everything's in the
Everything's in the universe of
yes.
ghosts. Yeah.
So is a table. It's all in the same universe.
I think you're getting confused because Harambe is in the world of ghosts, not Bigfoot.
Guys, we just want to let you
Confusing
know
them.
Gordo's just really upset right now and lashing out because he lost so much money in all of his ape NFTs right now that he just is in a very bad place.
Oh, so your
Please don't
bank
take it
account's a
personally.
ghost.
Gordo's NFT restaurant no longer accepts NFTs as currency. Everything has been going downhill.
Listen, Listen, there's nothing wrong with the bored apes. I'm hoping that they all bottom out and I can scoop them all up.
They are still super expensive.
I know they are,
Yeah.
and it's stupid.
It's the dumbest shit in the
Yeah,
entire
it is.
world.
But to move forward, as she's reading this book, we get like a pan over to the crowd, and there's maybe not even a dozen people, right? Like maybe about 10 or so people that are sitting there listening. And Kevin's one of them. He's sitting in the back, and it's weird because you would think being an actual medium, like his bullshit detector would be up because her experiences are so different than his.
Like right away.
But yeah, he doesn't pick up on any of that. He's just kind of like, okay, cool. She's the hot famous medium, and I'm just this lowly schlump.
He's got a crush, man, and love makes you blind.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
And
Not that eloquently.
and she
Did anybody
continues-
else in this scene get a weird reference? This felt like a Ghostbusters reference to me. Where she's reading
A ghost buster, if you know what I mean.
there it is.
You
She's
could have
reading
used
this-
that one earlier. You set it
Yeah,
up.
you can't just double up.
What are you talking about? I told you my book idea.
It would have been way better than Bigfoot of Cox or whatever you said.
Bigfoot of Cox sounds like Sherwood Forest character. It's like Robin of Locksley, Bigfoot of Cox.
And then when I approached his big hairy body, I said, "Is it true? Big feet, big meat." And he went,
I think you may have killed Gordo regularly, and Ferg's COVID is not going to help him out through this.
I got the mutant just in time before I went into a coughing fit.
Oh yeah, so you know how in Ghostbusters there's that scene where Ray gets the ghost blowjob
yes.
in Ghostbusters 1, right? So she's telling this story about it's a ghost erotica, as Gordo loves, and then they're at an occult bookstore owned by a sort of cantankerous guy, and that's what Ray does in Ghostbusters 2. He owns Ray's occult bookstore, and then you find out in the new movie that he still runs it, and now is kind of a cantankerous old guy. So I thought this, I mean, that's obviously later on after this came out, but I thought that the ghost sex and occult bookstore was possibly a slight reference to Ghostbusters.
Could be.
Maybe. Were you just really excited to use the word cantankerous?
Yes.
So,
Well, how often do you use cantankerous in your regular life? Especially, I don't leave the house. Getting to use any descriptive term for anybody is a fun thing for me.
well, if I had a nickel for every time I've used that word, I'd have 0 nickels. So after she reads her excerpt from the book, we get a girl walks up and thanks her for it, and she's the owner of the bookstore, right? It's handed down in family. She's actually a comedian. I don't know if you guys recognize her. Eliza Schlesinger.
Schlesinger, yeah. And Samantha Bee is in this as well earlier. So they got a lot of funny people in it. I like
Who's
Samantha Bee.
she from?
Samantha Bee was on The Daily Show for like a decade.
No, not her. I know who she is. The other one, Schlegenberg.
Eliza Schlesinger. She's just a comedian.
She's
been
a comedian. She's
around
the last
Familiar.
forever.
Like I definitely have
Yeah.
seen her in other stuff.
It's funny, actually. I
don't
think
know.
I follow Barstool. I think just today I was scrolling through and she popped up on like an answer to the internet or something like that they had posted.
Were they asking her about her cameo on Dead Meat?
Yeah, actually, that was the whole crux of the whole thing.
Dead meat?
Deadbeat.
Deadbeat.
Oh, I thought
My
you said
bad.
dead meat.
I did say
He
Dead
did.
Meat.
Which would also be a name for an erotica title, I guess.
Boom.
Got one.
We workshopped it in, everybody. We got there.
So yeah, so she's thanking her for being there, and now decided to open it up for some questions from the audience. But she did want to bring up first that her grandfather had died there, and thought it'd be fun if she could channel him and explain what happened, because she had been wondering the details of his death. So she kind of puts this medium on the spot, right? Like, why don't you give us a little example right now?
I feel like it doesn't work that way.
I guess depending on, I don't
was-
buy into a
Who's
lot
that
of this stuff
famous
personally.
who was that famous medium that was
John
on
Edwards.
TV? What was it?
John Edwards.
Yeah, and he was always he would just bullshit these poor people who were like,
Well, that's what we see here with this girl, because she's doing that whole thing that a lot of psychics do the same thing, right? When you go for your reading and they get into a light conversation with you and they try to pull a little bit of information and then
I think it's called
Use it
cold
later.
reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
that's what that guy John Edwards do too. He'd be like, it's somebody with a J name, but then half the crowd sits down, so then you can go from there.
So little
I had a
known,
third uncle named John. Like, oh, well, it fucking must be you, lady. Let's talk.
little known Gordo fact. I like to read tarot cards, and that's actually kind of part of the shtick. Is that you come with the question, and then you make it as kind of the things are so vague that you can fit them into kind of whatever problem. You could frame them into whatever problem.
That's
to
all
explain it.
astrology.
That's not
because
that's
I'm a
tarot
Scorpio.
cards. That's completely
No,
different.
I'm saying that's all astrology is, though. People
Yes.
fucking. I was
Well,
born in
yeah.
November. This really does apply to me. Like, this applies to everybody. Like,
Yeah, you can make a lot of it work for you, but I know a lot of people who are really into a lot of that stuff. I'm not going to lie and say there's not a lot of crystals and things in my home that are not mine.
I love crystals.
So, I let everybody has their thing. And
Crystal Pepsi?
Ooh, Crystal Pepsi is very good.
Billy
As long
Crystals?
as the case of them doesn't come half smashed.
But yeah, so to get back into this, she's now trying to channel the grandfather, right? And you can tell immediately that she's like bullshitter. And it's a lot of, I see some negative energy around him. Is that making sense to you? And she's like, not really. He died in a fire. Oh, yeah, a fire. No, I see the fire. He actually died in a fire trying to save this place, right? He's trying to save the bookstore that he loved. And like, so the crowd's all excited, right? And then the ghost of the grandfather pops up next to Kevin. And it's like, I hated this place. I'm the one who started the fire. And
And
then when Kevin,
she's like, I see negative energy. But like, that doesn't make any sense. He just died in a fire here. But like, oh, I don't know. That seems pretty fucking negative to me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
it
like
does.
a
The same
happy
thing.
thing.
that doesn't like discredit that he died in a fire whatsoever. It should have been
Yeah.
something like way off. Like,
right.
It was one of those happy fires.
But, and again, it's the situation where the grandfather didn't know that there was an actual person who could see him next to him. So now they start talking. Kevin realizes that Chamomile can't see the grandfather like he can. So now he realizes this girl is making it up. Although you would have thought a minute earlier when she's speaking, you'd be able to pick up on it too. But the grandfather is saying, hey, you need to tell people the truth. And, I've been trapped here for 20 years. I don't want to be remembered as this martyr for a place that I don't give a damn about. And apparently this is like, it's weird because like, this is the thing holding him back. Like, I can't move on in the afterlife until people know I didn't like this bookstore
I
that
didn't
much.
like this shop that I ran. This
Yeah.
though is another one of those things that like starts to, as the show goes on and you get more and more endeared to the character, where you're like, oh, he just does this for free because he knows it's a good thing to do for this
Yeah.
person, and that's what makes you like him more, right? He helps this guy.
no, he
out.
doesn't do it for free.
Well, he
because of
does
that.
do
He
it,
does
like,
that
as
because
a-
he gets insulted. He does it as revenge.
Right, but I have a feeling he would have done it anyway. I feel like his character now seems like somebody said,
Yeah,
"Hey,
I
I'm
don't
trapped
think he's
here.
like,
Can you help me?"
yeah, like in this case, I don't think he's someone who wouldn't help him. So
No, he blatantly told him no until he said he
He
was
didn't
a
want to get
medium too,
involved.
and then they
It
called
wasn't-
him a large.
yeah. It wasn't that he didn't. Yeah, it wasn't that he didn't want to help him. He just didn't want to like start trouble, and he thought that by getting involved, it would like kind of cause trouble. But because he's talking to him now, the girl who owns the bookstore and Chamomile can hear him talking, and kind of he's disrupting the small group. It's a tiny room that they're in, and they're like, "Excuse me, we're having a moment here." He's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm having a moment over here too." Chamomile's like, "Oh, it's okay. You're probably just a bit confused by my powers. It can be a little scary to people who don't really understand." It's like, "No, I understand them just fine. I'm actually a medium myself." And then she goes, "Really? Because you look like you're a large," which Fergie just mentioned earlier, which gets a laugh from everybody. And it was like such a dickish line on her part.
This is a joke though from I can't look. I'm pretty sure they stole it, right? Because this is 2014, and Long Island Medium, which is another medium show where they totally discredited that woman. Do you remember that show, Long Island Medium?
Yeah,
It's
the Jersey
Yeah.
girl. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Italian-
not Long Island, but
Long
yeah,
Island woman.
like a blonde woman. She's about in her 50s.
Yeah, with the
and
bob.
she's been discredited a bunch now. But in her commercial, every time she walked into a room and go, "Hi, I know I look like a large, but I'm actually a medium," and fucking another one of those things that I said to Kelsey like 10 million times because they played that commercial to death. Which then immediately made me think of, I can't remember the name, but there was a comedian who had a joke. They said, "I've got a friend named Alexis. She looks like a Buick." And I think it's the funniest fucking joke of all time. That reminded me of it.
That sounds like a Norm Macdonald line.
I was gonna say that sounds like a Rodney joke that he would say about himself.
Yeah, that would be a good Rodney joke.
But yeah, so during this interaction now he's kind of like, well, the grandfather's the one actually edging him on. He's like, stick up for yourself, like, set me free.
He's basically doing the Homer, stick up for yourself, Poindexter, which is pretty awesome.
And then she's like, well, if you don't mind, like, so they can continue on. He's like, actually, Shelley, I don't mind. I don't mind big time, okay? Your grandfather didn't die trying to save this place. He died trying to set the thing on fire. The only reason he had it in the first place was because, and the grandfather's whispering, like, grandmother loved to read. And he says, your grandmother loved to read. And, you know, when she died, he was like, okay, good, let's get rid of it. I don't want it anymore. And then he was going to start a restaurant and name it after her father, correct? That was like the plan? And if the restaurant didn't work, he was going to set that on fire too. And that's when he's like, okay, enough.
Her response to the granddaughter, like, realizing that it's true, and her response is like, well, it does make sense. Grandpa was a shyster, and Gam Gam loved to read. That line fucking destroyed me. I laughed so hard at that. Grandpa was a shyster, and Gam Gam loved to read. Fuck me, that is good writing. For where there's really bad writing at the beginning, it really gets better.
I like that.
I wasn't expecting her to believe him. I was expecting them to all just start like throwing shit at him and like getting mad. But
and you see the grandfather ascend on, right, once all this came out, like, which is funny again because like that's all he needed to move forward was tell them the truth. And but after he kind of drifts off, and Kevin does have the attention of the crowd because now everyone realizes like, oh shit, this guy's the real deal. We see Chamomile like gesture to a girl who's sitting in the front row, which we don't know she's like affiliated with her up until now. We see her like watching on earlier, but the girl in the crowd kind of gives her like the okay nod to do whatever. And now she starts like, Chamomile starts almost convulsing and chanting something. And she's like, Amu Abun Dishiftaya Tukani, and like just saying all this kind of gibberish and looking like she's being possessed or something like that. And the crowd's, paying attention to what she's doing. And she finally just spits up and throws up all that blue all over a guy sitting up front who now we're getting the payoff to the Slurpee situation. She chugs it down so she had something to regurgitate up in case of emergency, I guess.
She's gonna puke. She's gonna puke.
I mean, it's kind of a smart thing to do. Like, that's sort of a good last-ditch effort if you're a fake medium.
Imagine being like, oh, she threw up on me, and for some reason ectoplasm smells like blue raspberry. Isn't it weird? The afterlife's so interesting.
I mean, we had high C,
Ecto
cooler, but that was legit juice, and it was known to us to be juice. But yeah, no,
wasn't Slimer juice?
I don't think Slimer is made out of juice, no.
But no, I think it was just one of those things where, like, the way that scene ended, I don't know, it was interesting. Like, you got that payoff from the Slurpee thing, and it was her way to get out of it and move forward. And I thought that was a good time to cut to, right? Because if there's anything beyond that, it would be like, then you have to over-explain.
Yeah, way too much.
So from there, we see Kevin walking down the street and in front of what must be his apartment because he sees what he thinks is a tag sale, and he's excited until he realizes that it's all of his stuff.
And again, another great line. He's like, ooh, tag sale, what do we got? Oh, I already have all this stuff. Like, it's so stupid that it's funny.
And the landlord comes out, and he's basically telling him that he's out of there. And he did say earlier when he was at the drug dealer's house, like, oh, I'm probably homeless right now. So he knew he was behind, and, it was kind of any day now when this was going to come up. But as he's trying to get his stuff, all of a sudden, the older woman earlier, the Nona, walks up and decides, like, I'm going to buy everything. And the landlord offers, I'll give you everything for what, like $500, something like that. He's like, I'll give you 30.
Also in this scene too, which we didn't talk about it because it's right before this, and they're going through this stuff where for some reason he just stole the plunger from the Museum of Modern Art.
Yes.
Like, that's a joke there. It's like, why would he steal the plunger?
He thought it was worth money just because someone wrote MoMA on it.
He was like, oh, it could be art.
I mean, he's not wrong.
It could. There's a lot of weird interpretive art. There is
art is
subjective. There, yeah. But so, and it was weird because it was the landlord. So the landlord put all his stuff out to make some money back to try to recoup some of the money owed to him. But he's not actually kicking him out.
Yeah, that struck me as very weird. that like he just wouldn't like change the locks and be like, here's your shit.
Yeah, that makes more sense if he's like, you're out of here, and kicks him out. But instead he's like, I just took a bunch of your belongings and put them outside, but you can still come back in.
Yeah, none of that makes sense.
So after the landlord walks off with his now $30, you have the moment between Kevin and his grandma, and they're able to talk a little bit. And she tells him, I've been thinking a lot about Daniel, and, when we were young, and he used to write me letters. And on the envelope, he would always just put a single letter A. And when I saw the tile that you left, it reminded me of that. And it made me think about how much he meant to me. So, maybe you're not my type, but, it's something I've got to do. So I'm in. Now he's excited. He's like, oh, great, you're in. This, makes me so happy, but hang on. And because, again, all his stuff is outside because of this little sale that was going on, he has like this little like ceramic, was it a bunny or a cat or something? I think it was a bunny, but he takes the top of it off and pulls out a bag of mushrooms, and he informs her that, to be able to do this, his mind needs to be more like mushable and in a dark state, and he needs to be on a really bad trip to be possessed, which is interesting, right?
Which I imagine is one of those things too, where it's like leading to like, and as we go on, you're going to see this dude have all sorts of weird mushroom adventures because you imagine he's going to have to be possessed again.
Because I would have thought a ghost can just kind of get in there if they need to. But
I think that was a cover up, and he was taking them to be able to fuck this old lady.
I don't know,
I was thinking
because
that too.
When you see him physically, we'll see in a moment, right? Well, there's a specific moment where the ghost finally of Daniel enters his body, and it looks like he was right at that mental state he needed to be at right when it happened. We'll talk about that in a second. So we get into the house, and they're in the attic. Now again, they have to go back to this Korean family's attic. So now he's just walking up there with this old lady in a nightie to be like, okay, gonna get rid of this ghost now. Yeah, trust me, this is part of it.
I feel like you said earlier, you get a little liberal with, this is what you got to do.
Yeah. I hope there's some transparency with this couple where they understand why this woman's like coming upstairs with them, but.
And stealing their kimchi mayo and asking where the lube is.
You know what's funny? It didn't dawn, because that's the dialogue is, as she enters, he asks her if she got any lube. He's like, all they had was kimchi mayo. And I wasn't thinking about how they were in the Korean like couple's house. I'm thinking she went to a store and that was like all she could find. And now it makes so much more sense.
Stole their spicy mayo for sex lube from their cupboard.
Which they will very much regret.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun for anybody.
He starts taking the mushrooms, and she's asking like, do you feel anything yet? And he's saying it's hard to tell, but you're cutting, and you see like this like weird blurry fisheye thing with these like baby Cupid type things floating around his her head. So you can see that, he's feeling something. I've never done the acid, so I can't tell you if that's
mushrooms.
Oh, mushrooms. I have not done the mushrooms either.
I have.
I haven't either, but I have been told to microdose.
Don't do that. That's not fun.
Well,
I don't want to get
that,
high. I just don't want to take hard drug pills.
Stop. Because if you're gonna microdose, you're going to eventually fuck up. You will. It's just a matter of time before you eat just that little bit and you've built it up in your system, and then your ass is going to be tripping and you're going to be like in your office or, in a meeting or whatever, and you're going to be tripping sack. And that's not good. It happens to everybody.
I think the world really needs me doing that, right? Being on a work call and being like, oh no.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you would, over time, you're building up that mushrooms in your system, and you can't, because they're mushrooms, you're not going to get an extract of psilocybin. You're going to fuck it up. You're going to eat that little bit of a mushroom too much, and your ass is done. Your ass is grass, as we say.
Is this in the episode?
I don't know.
Why not? I'm laying down some knowledge here.
Well, Gordo was giving us some mushroom knowledge since we don't really know a lot of it.
Sure. So I guess like my other question here is this visual portrayal of a trip accurate?
Kind of. I mean,
No.
not so much that you're seeing something, but I mean, I've always gotten like the spinny head.
I got the waves.
Yeah.
That sounds horrifying.
But I didn't see any,
I
like,
don't want to invite
Cupid.
that into my life.
No, I
So,
didn't see Cupid.
When I took him, I went to the Museum of Science, and I could have swear the fucking T-Rex out front was breathing, and it really put me in a bad place.
That sounds horrifying.
Miserable. People always tell me stories like that, and I'm like, none of that sounds fun. I don't like not being in control of the situation, and if there's a point where like I literally don't have control of like what my body is interpreting, that sounds like absolute torture. None of that sounds even remotely fun.
So I will say this, like, I do have mild depression. After I've taken mushrooms, it's cleared up for like a considerable amount of time. And that's no joke.
Yeah, and that's why people keep telling me, they're like, don't, because I went through a bunch of pills for things like that, and they all were awful. People were like,
So
try
if
this,
you're
try
depressed,
that.
take mushrooms,
trip.
everybody.
Trip once, and it's good for 6
Pergordo.
months to a year, depending on your system.
I don't want to trip though.
All right, so moving right along, after he does the mushrooms, he hands her this list, and she asks what it is, and he says, "This is a list of my insecurities. Mushrooms only get me halfway there. I need to be completely broken down emotionally and physically. So if you would be so kind." So she starts reading off the list and says, "You're a loser. Your only friend is your drug dealer. Your breath smells like spoiled conchetta." And he's like, "Wait, was that on there?" It's like, "No, it's just a pitch." I actually like that from her. I thought that was like witty the way she replied. It was a good delivery. She continues on saying,
For only a few acting credits, she's pretty good.
"Yeah, no, she's pretty quick. You've been in the same business for 10 years and you have nothing to show for it. You finally met the girl of your dreams and now you got your heart broken because she turned out to not be who you thought she was. And now you're giving up on love and you've resolved to spend the rest of your life alone." And you just cut to him just like sitting there crying, looking down and totally broken. And that's
the
when
perfect
ghost,
time to have sex.
Yeah, now the ghost finally enters his body. Yeah, I didn't know if he needed that. When he said that he needed that, I didn't know if it was he needed that for sex or if he needed that to be possessed.
I think
I
that's
feel like
joke.
it's a little column A, column B, maybe.
Yeah. So the ghost enters him, and there's like a quick flash in his face where you can kind of see Daniel in his face a little bit briefly. And now it cuts to like the grandmother is her younger self now, and Kevin is Daniel, and they're interacting for the first time in years. Now, I guess that's how that's seen. Like, does she morph into her old self in this moment? Like, is
I think
what we're
the two
seeing
of
the
them
reality?
see each other as their older selves, and I don't think he's.
I don't know.
It's hard to gauge this. I mean, this is like
Yeah.
a sweet moment because they make all the jokes come after it. So
And the thing is, it's the pilot, so we don't have any precedent. So we don't know like if there's other ones or how like other people react to the possessions and stuff.
And as we find out, Nona and her younger self, quite the looker.
Was it the
And-
same actress that played the granddaughter?
No, I thought so
No, I
maybe at
think
first,
so.
but they're a little different.
Okay.
And he tells her.
They missed out on an opportunity to recreate the scene from Ghost with the pottery.
oh,
And
Whoopee. Okay, I'll
R.I.P.
stop.
Whoopi.
he says, you're more beautiful than the day I shipped off. I'm so glad I have a second chance. And she gets up, and there's a kind of scene where she opens her blouse up, and again, a very nice looking woman. And
They went with
asks-
the period appropriate bras that are so insane looking.
Yes, yeah, I did
They
notice
just look
that.
so uncomfortable.
A lot more like wires and yeah, they're interesting. They've certainly shaped a very specific, like pointed out cone type way. It was like,
Yeah, it
Of
looks
that
like it must
time.
be so uncomfortable to wear.
Asks if he's ready, and now we get into this little. It wasn't graphic, but they have their like sex scene, and you see him on top of her, and they're fornicating, and they're going at it a little bit, and they're both moaning, and right at the climax is when Daniel leaves the body. So now it cuts to Kevin and Nona in her more aged version, like modern day. So
It's like he comes the ghost out into a light bulb. It's a
Yes.
really weird scene.
Yeah. And it only lasted a couple of seconds.
did you notice earlier too when the grandfather at the bookstore
He went
left,
into
he
a
also
book.
went into I thought he went into the lamp next to the book.
Oh, maybe. I thought he flew into the book, but there wasn't a lamp right there. Maybe it was that.
Kind of looked like he fluttered away.
So
I'll have to rewatch that.
yeah, I believe it
We
was a
all
lamp
saw
both
something
times.
different.
No, I think both times it was they go into like a light fixture. So, but yeah, I guess we'd have to rewatch, right? And now you see the Scrabble tiles on the ground spell out "thank you," and then this I thought was pretty telegraphed as well.
Yeah,
Because
this was
again,
the joke
now
where I was like, I know
You wanna
exactly
go
where this is
again?
going.
Yeah, Grandma asks, do you want to go again? It's like, it's me right now, Mrs. DiNucci. It's like, I'm game if you are.
Then immediately pushes his head down.
Yes. So she wanted some cunnilingus.
I'm game if you are.
She wanted
That's
to
like
be-
Chekhov's gun, though, right? Like he mentioned cunnilingus in the beginning of it.
She wanted Kevin to treat her the way he treats an Angus,
Angus
burger.
burger. The way he treats Angus Bethune.
Also, to go back to that
Breaks
at
his
the
nose.
top of the episode, have you ever heard someone just say Angus burger like that? Like really like emphasize the Angus part of it?
Only on commercials for
For
restaurants.
fast food
Yeah.
restaurants.
Fast food restaurants love being like, and it's an Angus burger.
Like that's some kind of rich thing. Like,
Yeah, like
give me a
you've
nice
never heard-
Wagyu burger, man.
Yeah, you
Right.
never heard someone say like, "Hey, you guys want to come by? I'm having a cookout. I'm gonna have some sausages, some Angus burgers." Like it's just not said
Yeah,
that
it's
way.
never. People usually only like refer to like Wagyu or like any burger that the cow lived on an island and was like fed beer and lived a better life than we
Island
did. That's
cow.
what they do.
No, but you know who probably does have good Angus burgers? Omaha Steaks.
No, they're
I do
dead
believe
to me. I
Omaha
think
Steaks does have
no.
Angus burgers.
You know
I
what?
think-
I'll say this. They don't have great burgers. I've had their burgers. And you know what? They didn't fucking sponsor us, so they can go fuck themselves.
Well, I will say, Butcher Box has great burgers, and if they'd like to sponsor me, that'd be fantastic.
And remember, you can go to Omaha Steaks and put in the promo code S1E1. I still don't think it's gonna work, but if enough people do it, maybe one day they'll look us up and figure out what's going on, and maybe hook us up with some chicken wings or something.
And if
Yeah,
you do,
somebody
I'll
can send me
take
a
back
burger,
my
I'd be
fuck
stoked.
you.
You have an opportunity, Omaha Steaks. You have an opportunity to turn Ferg back around.
You lost the customer.
Does he actually dislike your burgers, or is he just hurt? We'll find out in the future.
Here's the thing, though. You've eaten one of their burgers before, but have you ever eaten it out? Because it appears to be that that's the real key to it.
That's true. I've never done conolingus to a Angus burger from Omaha Steaks.
Conolangus.
Burgerlangus.
And his cousin Analingus.
Well, if it's Ally McBeal's eating the burger.
Yeah.
But she's
Analingus.
dead.
So, oh my God. Anyway, so the next scene we have Kevin, he's back outside and he's walking along and we see Chamomile and the girl who's sitting in the front row, the one who's obviously in like cahoots with her, are sitting in the back of a cab together. And they spot him and she's like, pull over, that's him. And she runs out and she says, listen to me, you hungry, hungry hippo. It's like, I don't know who you are or what your game is, but if you ever pull a stunt like that again, I'm going to rip your balls off and turn them into tiny, mini dangling earrings. She asks if she's making herself clear. He says, yes, perfectly. And he said, hey, I'm just there to help. And she's like, I don't need your help. No, I mean, I was just trying to help somebody else. And she says, no one needs your help. I help people. I'm there to give them closure. And he goes, well, how does vomiting blue slushy help give people closure? And she was like, she didn't know that he knew that it was slushy. So now she's like, how did he know that? Then just grabs his balls. And this part I liked because she's like, do you understand? And he's like, yes, yes, yes. And as she's holding his balls, he goes in for the kiss. He is a damaged man. So I did find that funny. So, but she rejects the offer for the kiss and slaps him. And then I think knees him to the ground and
Yeah, she knees him in the jump.
knees him and causes him to
This
throw up.
confused me. Why did he throw up the blue?
There is a scene where you see him drinking a slushy like on his
Okay.
own.
Yeah, he
No.
bought one to see if it was something weird that she was doing.
No. Do you think that he, after she put it in the trash, he picked it up and drank it because
No.
he's fucking weird?
No, you saw
I don't
him
think
like
so.
he's first off. She basically finished
Yeah, she
hers
chugged it.
anyways. Yeah,
Yeah,
No,
the amount
she
that he
still had a
threw
little
up
bit
was
left.
more than was left in there.
very little, but you do see him drinking one on his own later on. It is there.
Okay. I must have missed
Oh,
him.
okay.
drinking
I
it.
must have missed
it's a
it.
small detail, and they probably, because they're going to call back to it, probably should have shown you a little more to make it not like totally give it away, but to just kind of make it something that you would have taken a note of.
What they should have had them do was when he saw her chug it, he's thinking she's super successful. He goes and buys one, does the same to try to imitate her career.
To see what
Only he has
she's
actual
doing.
power.
Yeah. And what
We
I thought
talked
was
about how it would have
interesting,
been weird earlier that the first one smelled like blue raspberry on that guy, but this one's gonna smell like blue raspberry. But he also just ate out an old lady and was told that his breath smelled like spoiled pancetta. So I can't even imagine how bad that had to smell.
Dust comes out of his mouth instead of...
I'm trying to remember now because sometimes, I'm going to be completely honest here. Sometimes as I'm reading my notes, so I'm not I'm just trying to read and speak and be, quick enough. I don't remember if I said pancetta properly. I think I
I
butchered
don't
it.
think you did.
And I don't think I think I completely butchered it and
Oh, did you
didn't think
say it
about
wrong?
it. I think I was just reading it phonetically as I was going through quickly. And until you said it, it didn't flag in my brain. I'm like, oh, I fucked that up. But, hey, guys, listen back. If you heard me say something wildly incorrect earlier, I apologize. And now you know why that happened. Your breath smells like spoiled conchetta. But
Well, I didn't notice it if you did, so.
Well, that's good.
I didn't pick up on it.
Well, that's good. So I called myself out. But yeah, what I thought was interesting is the scene closes with she gets back into the car with that girl, and the last shot is like that girl looking out the window at him, and I felt like they were foreshadowing a little bit, like this girl is going to have a lot more to do with the show. And my early guess, and I have no knowledge because I haven't watched anything else, is that she's going to somehow become romantically tied to this guy, like the friend.
She
think
seems
the opposite.
sinister to me.
Yeah.
She does, but
Yeah, she seems like she's definitely evil, and obviously she's lying, right? She's not a real medium.
I think
it's like the girl's
I
in
think
control.
the blonde girl, I don't think is a bad person. I think she like she's a bitch, obviously, and a fake. But the friend seems sinister to me.
She's the one,
she
running
gave some
the show.
weird. She gave some weird looks in the bookshop, and then she gave that
Yeah.
weird look at the very end. And I'm like,
Yeah,
This
she's
is
definitely like
something
the
up- this is
manager
the villain.
handler who's taking all the money, so
I-
I can't let
I-
the gravy
yeah.
train dry out.
I just thought that maybe she was, they're going to pivot and somehow she's going to become interested in Kevin or something.
No,
Well,
I
I
think
guess
it's
we'll
going to
see.
be the opposite. I think it's going to be the blonde girl because
No, I don't see
dark
that
hair-
happening, but who knows? I guess they can make her a more sympathetic character if you learn more about her. And again, this is interesting, right? Because this is a show that we all legit are going in fresh, so we don't know. So it's kind of fun to have that perspective and not know the actual future yet.
But that was it,
Yeah, that was the conclusion of the
Yeah,
episode,
that's the end.
and that's why we have all these questions.
which I guess
Well,
could be a
then-
good thing, right?
Yeah, no. It's
I guess
great
now
thing,
we'll find out
actually.
if anybody's going to go in for episode 2, and we'll have to find out more.
Now that we're done, there's like one note I had on the show. I don't know if you guys have read it. I'm sure you probably did. There wasn't a lot on the show note-wise. But did you guys see that James Iha, the original guitarist from the Smashing Pumpkins, does all the scores for the first season?
yeah, we
I
were
did see
talking about
that.
that earlier.
And I audibly went, oh, yuck.
You don't like the Smashing Pumpkins?
I do not like the Smashing
You hate
Pumpkins.
everything. I like the Smashing Pumpkins. They're a band I've not seen live yet, and I think would be a good time.
Well, despite all my rage, I am just a guy who does a podcast.
Boo.
And, yeah, terrible. Joe, and I feel like you and Billy
Much like
Corgan,
that band's songs.
you guys would get along swimmingly. Like, he loves that old nostalgic wrestling the same way
He
you
does
do.
like old shitty wrestling. He owns NWA now.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sure
he
I could
owns
have
power.
a beer and a lot of conversations with that guy. I just imagine that I would tell him we should stick this conversation to wrestling because we shouldn't talk about music.
Gordo, you mean power?
Nothing against the people.
Yeah, I was going to say power.
We're guards. But yeah, no, that was the conclusion of the episode. Guys, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to mention or add to this before we move on.
Nothing
No, I think we
really.
covered it. I mean, this was an interesting show that was very, very fast paced with tons and tons of dialogue. And it was an interesting watch. And I think it would be probably for anybody out here who's listening to this who hasn't seen it. I think that you might enjoy watching it while not having to sort of analytically take notes as well.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
And I'm going to rewatch it just to sort
Yeah,
of see it and
I've
see if I
said
can
before,
absorb
I try
it
to
a
give
little
it like
differently.
a once over. I try to, when I have time, I try to watch an episode free of note taking, just watch it. And then I'll go back and kind of deep dive and take my notes and watch it with a little more critical eye. Because this is certainly a show that as we went through it, there was a lot of stuff to pick apart. And I don't know, the style of the show, I don't know if it's really meant to really dive in the way we did, but
You know what it felt like? It felt like this show was made for the USA Network. It was
I
written
thought the
exactly
same
like
exact
one of those
thing. I was going to
shows.
say that.
Like this would have been on
Yeah.
after USA High.
No, this would have come on after Monk ended.
No, but Jay, it's an interesting point that you brought up about it, whether or not the show should be analyzed or not. Because I feel like a show like this actually kind of benefits from the analysis. Because there were so many little things in there that you might have glossed over.
It's I think sometimes it's the difference between a good show and a great show. So a show like this doesn't need, like, it's relying more on the light jokes, the comedy, the simplicity of some of the storytelling. But it's the shows that are the same but take the little effort to have those little details taken care of, even though they're insignificant, like, and you catch them and you appreciate them. I think it adds a lot. And I think they kind of didn't do a lot of that stuff. There's a few little things here and there, but the writing of this episode was very simple, right? It was one linear story. You're following him along. There's not like an A story and a B story. There's nothing going on without the main character there. You're just following him at all times. I don't think there was a single scene that he wasn't in, right?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's pretty much him the whole time.
The only time was the old lady alone with the piece
Right.
when she found it, and that's just because he just left. It's the only
Right.
time I can think of him not being there.
And the quick, like, sex scene when it turns into the younger people.
Yeah, it's
But
not
he
him, but he's
was
technically
there.
there.
But
But
he's
he's
there,
technically there.
Yeah, there's no time where, like, two side characters are talking off doing something without him being present. But yeah, no, we've kind of dug into this pretty good, and I think the only thing left to do is the green light or cancel. So, let's start with Ferg.
All right, I'll start with I really like the main actor of this show. I'm sorry, I always forget his name, but he's in Dale and Tucker vs. Evil, which is a really good horror movie. He was a sidekick in a lot of different shows in the early 2000s, and him just being in this in 2014 to me made it feel a lot older for some reason. Like it felt like an early 2000s show just because he was in it, and that's not his fault, and it's not even a complaint. This was a rare time that we've had shows that we've reviewed and I've been ready to cancel, and us just breaking it down just changed my mind and made me pass them. I almost had the opposite effect with this, where I came in fully intended to pass this, and all of our breaking down made me almost, it's like on the line of canceling it. But when we're done with this, I intend to actually go finish the show, so it did enough to make me come back for a second episode. So it's gonna get the green light still. So yeah, green light from me.
Gordo.
A lot like Ferg, I came in ready. I came in hot. I came in ready to be like, this is the easiest green light ever. But talking through it, it's still good. Like the cliffhanger at the end is what is making me want to watch the second episode. I'm hoping that the second episode goes like the 2/3 of the episode that seemed like they hit their stride. Because if it ends up being like more like the first part of the episode, I don't think I'd like it. But I do have a curiosity to see the second episode because I do want to follow this character. I do want to see where this is going. Yeah, green light for me.
Joe.
Yeah, this show is kind of like a Tale of Two Cities, man, right? Like it's a very bad beginning and a very good end. Like the middle, I went into this watching it going, I'm not gonna like this. It's so obvious. The jokes are so telegraphed. Like it's gonna be an older woman. Like you just know where it's going, right? But it started getting charming and interesting, and the writing started getting better, and it started getting funnier. Like you're not a lesbian, you're just going through a phase because you're in mourning is like the literal point where you can like put a stake down in this episode and go, okay, it's better now. Like the writing changed, everything's good. I think that because of that, I mean, I'm very intrigued to watch another one. I already told Kelsey, I was like, I think you'll like this. I'll watch the first one again if you want to try it and see more of it, because I am intrigued by where this goes. I like all the cast. I mean, Samir from Office Space is in this episode. How can you say no to that? That's a green light for me.
Yeah, and I do want to mention real quick before I get into it. Nick did hit us up beforehand. He said that this is an easy green light for him. And he said that he can't think of a show that, we've done recently that he's wanted to watch the next episode more. So green light for him as well. And as far as I go, it's tricky, right? So I said in the beginning, I up front did not like the beginning of this episode at all. I didn't think the first scene made any sense. It wasn't funny to me. I thought his character was a little too much. That Conolangus thing is like, it was too stupid and like, I don't know, I just couldn't relate to this character at all. It's weird because between that and between all the predictable storytelling, there's a lot of negatives and a lot of little holes here. But it seemed like there was a lot of reason to want to continue. There's a lot of little things that happen along the way that were interesting to me, and I was like, okay, it's starting to take form a little bit. I'm a little curious about where this is going to go. I'm ultimately going to greenlight it, but this is like the most borderline greenlight I've ever given. And that being said, that's very funny because we are now at a 5 for 5, so congrats to Deadbeat, but I will say maybe the most borderline 5 for 5 we have of the bunch so far. I feel like there was a lot of us could have went one way or the other. This one really, it did just enough to be curious, right? Like I can see myself, when I watched this, I could see this being a show that I would be like, oh, I'm going to start watching this. And then like 3 or 4 episodes in, get bored with it and be like, nah, and not even finish the season. But we'll find out. I guess ultimately, if you want to watch episode 2, that's really enough to greenlight a show, right? So that being said, again, congrats, 5 out of 5. You do live on to see another episode with us. So again, guys, thank you for listening. S1E1pod.com is the place to go to find all the links to where you want to listen to us, all the social media. S1E1pod on Instagram, Twitter. I say this at the end of every episode. I do love the interaction, so keep hitting us up. Give us suggestions. Let us know how you feel about an episode. We're always listening. It's a lot of fun for us to interact with you guys and know our audience and where you guys are coming from. It has been really cool to see over this last now year and a half, everything grow and more people listening, engaging with us. It is a lot of fun. So we would like you guys to continue doing that. And, I'll say that, I'm going on a whim here. If you're listening this deep into the episode, I'm going to say something right now. We have not gotten a lot of reviews on iTunes lately. So if you're on Apple and you live in the lower 48 continental US, the next person to give us a review on iTunes, I will send you a care package. So let us know if you can do that. If you do that for me and you send a review on iTunes and then you show it, you can hit us up on Instagram or Twitter and prove it after the fact. First person to do that, we will send you a small care package. So let us know. But again, lower 48 only. Sorry to all the people listening. We have a lot of people who have hit us up from other areas, and we totally love and appreciate you guys. But I am just not willing to pay all that shipping right now. So again, lower 48, hit us up on iTunes and we'll take care of that for you. But let's wrap this up, guys. Again, thank you guys all for listening. We appreciate it so much. Tune in again next week for episode 4 in our October spooky, Halloweeny, supernatural, not cryptozoology block that we're doing right now. Thank you guys again. We'll catch you next week. Goodbye.
I think we got the best paranormal festivities.
How about paranormal festivities?